Next time you're driving down the highway and you see one of those massive semi-trucks rolling past, I really want you to take a good look at it. You see, that's not just a big vehicle. It's literally a rolling lifeline. I mean, it's carrying the food we eat, the phones we use, the fuel that keeps our whole world spinning. So welcome to today's Explainer, where we're going to unpack exactly why the $800 billion trucking industry is secretly collapsing. Now, by all accounts, this sector is supposed to be the ultimate, unbreakable backbone of the global economy, right? But when you look past the shiny chrome and that illusion of endless highway momentum, we're seeing massive structural fractures that threaten to bring the whole system to a grinding halt. $800 billion. That is the sheer size of this industry every single year in the US alone. Honestly, it's a behemoth. And you'd probably think that with all this immense wealth flowing through the system, everything would be rock solid, right? Well, actually, scratch that. This $800 billion figure isn't some giant vault of cash. It's more like a super fragile house of cards built on these razor-thin profit margins. And those margins? They dictate exactly what you pay for groceries or for that package arriving at your door. Right now, despite that staggering top-line revenue, freight rates are absolutely crashing, legacy companies are drowning in debt, and drivers are quitting in record numbers. It is easily the greatest logistical crisis you've probably never heard of. And if it totally fractures, it could drag the rest of the economy right down with it. So let's look at Section 1, the driver shortage lie. For the last decade or so, we've all been fed a very specific narrative by the media and industry lobbyists. We're constantly told that we're short by about 80,000 drivers. It sounds like a super straightforward labor shortage, doesn't it? But actually, that is a massive illusion. The harsh reality here is that the industry kind of treats its drivers like disposable batteries. You hire them, you work them to the absolute bone for 11-hour days, and you pay them pennies per mile. And get this, here's the real kicker. Drivers are routinely forced to wait at shipping docks for hours, sometimes entire days, while their trucks are loaded or unloaded. In the industry, this is known as detention time, and for the vast majority of drivers, it is completely unpaid. Imagine sitting at your desk for 6 hours and your boss telling you, "Oh, hey, you're not on the clock yet." We don't have a shortage of drivers, folks. We have a massive shortage of retention. And the math behind this broken system is absolutely staggering. Major truckload carriers are routinely seeing a 90 to 100% annual turnover rate. Just let that sink in for a second. 90 to 100%. They aren't struggling to find people to drive. They're struggling to keep people who are willing to put up with the brutal, exhausting reality of the job. From a business standpoint, total disaster. When a company has to constantly recruit, hire, and train a brand new driver every single year just to replace the one that burned out and handed in their keys, well, their profit margins don't just shrink, they vanish into thin air. It is just an incredibly expensive revolving door. Which brings us to Section 2, the megafleet debt trap. Okay, to understand how bad the financial decisions at the very top have been, we kind of have to rewind back to the 2021 supply chain boom. During the pandemic recovery, freight rates hit an all-time high, and corporate boardrooms honestly thought the party was never going to end. This triggered a massive industry-wide case of FOMO, fear of missing out. Huge companies went on this wild, debt-fueled buying spree. In a rush to modernize, they financed massive fleets of next-generation electric vehicles way before the charging infrastructure was even built to support them. They poured millions into automated tech that, frankly, just wasn't ready for the road. But, as we know, economies are cyclical. As inflation crept up, consumer spending cooled down really fast, and the inevitable happened. Freight rates crashed, leaving these giant companies holding a very, very expensive, highly leveraged bag. Because of that market crash, these mega companies were suddenly stuck making massive monthly loan payments for fleets of trucks that were literally just gathering dust in giant parking lots. The revenue coming in? It couldn't even cover the interest on the debt they originally took out to buy the trucks. The math just stopped working. And the fallout from that? We've seen multiple top 20 carriers bleed out and file for bankruptcy in just the last 24 months. Think about that. These aren't small mom-and-pop shops making a few bad bets. These are the corporate giants of the road, companies with thousands of employees and decades of history, and they are stumbling hard. Let's shift gears to Section 3, the owner-operator slaughter. For decades, being an independent trucker was really a staple of the American dream. It was the ultimate way to be your own boss, own your own equipment, and build a legacy. But today, that dream has turned into a total financial slaughterhouse. As an independent owner-operator, you aren't just holding the steering wheel. You're the CEO, the lead mechanic, and the dispatcher, all rolled into one person. And the costs right now are suffocating. Insurance premiums alone have skyrocketed by an average of 40% recently. Diesel fuel prices are incredibly volatile, and everyday maintenance costs universally up across the board.
And to make matters exponentially worse, those desperate, debt-ridden megafleets we just talked about, they are flooding the market with cheap freight just to generate whatever cash flow they can. This desperate underbidding is driving independent spot rates straight into the dirt.
Which brings us to a pretty chilling reality for independent truckers today. Many of them are literally paying more to drive a load than they're getting paid to deliver it. I mean, when you factor in the fuel, the wear and tear, and the crazy insurance costs, they are running at an absolute loss just by turning the key in the ignition. We are talking about hardworking people burning through their entire life savings, sleeping in the cramped cabs of their trucks, just praying the market eventually turns around. It's really no longer a sustainable business model for a huge chunk of the workforce. It's basically become a broken gamble where the house always wins.
Moving on to Section 4, the regulatory nightmare.
So, love it or hate it, trucking is one of the most heavily regulated sectors on the planet. And that intense oversight creates a very real operational burden. Let's just look at two major hurdles here. First, you have strict emissions mandates. These often force companies into making premature, incredibly expensive engine replacements and upgrades. Second, we have what's called hours of service rules. These are federal regulations that dictate exactly how long a driver can work and when they absolutely must rest, down to the minute. Now, whatever the intent behind these rules is, the objective reality on the ground is that they just lack flexibility. If a driver gets caught in an unexpected 2-hour traffic jam, they can't just pause their regulatory clock. It just keeps ticking. And this adds an unavoidable, compounding layer of operational costs and immense daily stress to a system that, as we've seen, is already incredibly fragile. But here is where the impact of these rules drastically diverges between the big corporate players and the little guys. For a massive megafleet, adjusting to a new, expensive regulation or buying compliant equipment, I mean, sure, it's painful, but ultimately it's just a line item on a corporate spreadsheet. They have the massive capital needed to absorb that cost. But for the independent owner-operator, it acts as the final nail in the coffin. The financial barrier to entry is getting so impossibly high, and the profit margins are so incredibly thin that the sheer cost of regulatory compliance is basically wiping out the middle class of independent trucking altogether. Finally, let's look at Section 5, the painful rebuild. So what does this all mean? Is the entire concept of trucking just going to vanish into thin air? No, absolutely not. The world still needs to move goods, and your local grocery shelves still desperately need to be stocked every single morning. But the path forward, it's going to be a highly painful rebuild. Right now, we're watching the old, debt-fueled, exploitative systems completely collapse under their own weight. As the dust settles over the next few years, the industry as we know it is going to drastically shrink. But from those ashes, it'll be forced to rebuild leaner, smarter, and way more efficient. And the genuine silver lining here, the drivers who actually survive this immense economic shakeout will inevitably command higher pay, simply because the endless supply of cheap disposable labor will be gone. It's a necessary market correction for sure, but getting there is going to be incredibly tough. As we wrap up this explainer, I want you to really consider the evidence we've unpacked today. From the retention lies and the mega fleet debt traps, all the way to those crushing operational costs. Is the media exaggerating the pain? Or are we witnessing a total, fundamental collapse of the old trucking guard? What do you think? If you work anywhere in the supply chain, are you seeing this crash firsthand? And for the rest of us, how is this massive industry shift going to impact the prices of the everyday goods we rely on? The backbone of our economy is literally resetting right before our eyes. Keep your eyes on the road ahead, keep analyzing the world around you, and keep learning.